Welcome back to Open Window Politics. Today we're going to be going through a 2026 U.S. Senate election prediction. We will get started with the first state. We'll go from likely to tilt, starting with the likely blue. Really, there's just going to be the one state, Minnesota. Long history of voting blue. I definitely don't think anything will change this November, and I think it will elect a Democratic senator, so that's going to be the only likely blue state. There are going to be a couple in the likely red column, however. Starting out with South Carolina. Generally, South Carolina is in the safe red margin. Occasionally, in really good years for Democrats, it's narrowed up to likely, and now is shaping up to be just about that. So I think this state will be by a likely margin, still a Republican victory, but by less than a safe margin. Next up, we're going to head over to Montana. I think this state used to be more competitive. It's had Democratic senators and governors in the past, but in recent elections, it shifted to the right, and those Democrats are all out of office now. They have a Republican governor, two Republican senators, and two Republican House members. So the state has gone further to the right, and I think Democrats will perform well enough to narrow it from safe to likely, partially because the incumbent senator on the Republican side is retiring, so Republicans don't have incumbency advantage, which I think will benefit Democrats in the long run. And then we're going to head over, I think that is going to be the next one. We're going to head over to Florida. That state I'm going to put in the likely column. This state, kind of similar to Montana, used to be more competitive, but arguably one of the most competitive states, especially in the last couple prior elections. In the era of Trump, it's kind of gone further and further to the right. In even reliably Democratic counties like Miami-Dade County have voted red, and I think Democrats are really just losing any chance of power in the state of Florida. And it will be interesting to see what happens this November. Democrats might be able to narrow it up to a lean margin, but for now I'm going to keep it in the likely rating. So that's going to be one more seat for the Republicans. Next up, we're going to go to the lean blue. But before we do that, so right now the math is 44 for the Democrats to 46 for the Republicans. The Republicans would need to win 4 of the 10 remaining seats left to be called in order to secure the majority. That's because, well, as you can see there in the bottom right, the VP thing is marked red. So because J.D. Vance is a Republican, and the vice president, he would be the tie-breaking vote in a 50-50 Senate. But we'll see if that ends up being the case. And then we're going to head over to do the lean blue states. We'll start out with New Hampshire. Feel pretty confident in calling that one for the Democrats. Nothing too crazy there. Going to put that in the Democratic Party's column. And then we're going to head down to Georgia. Going to put that into the lean blue. This state is generally pretty competitive. It's seen some good election results for Democrats since 2024. The state did go red in 2024, though, but in 2020 it went for Biden. Georgia has 2 Democratic senators, and at the moment it's looking like they will elect a Democratic governor this November. Could be, I think that race is probably more competitive. I think Jon Ossoff on the Senate level is definitely in a good position, so that's going to be the call there in Georgia. And then we're going to head up to Maine, going to put that in the lean blue column as well. This will be the first flip of the prediction from a seat going, well, a flip either way, really. A seat going from red to blue. This is currently Susan Collins' seat. She has been in the Senate for quite a while and fended off a variety of notable Democratic challengers, high-profile Democrats. So I think she has a chance to potentially do it again. But really, we just, as kind of a byproduct of how partisan the country has been getting, there are very few states that have senators from opposing political parties, one from each. And I think that Maine's general Democratic tilt normally votes in the lean blue column on the presidential level. And I think Maine's Democratic tilt, well, I would argue more than a tilt, Maine's Democratic lean is going to be hard for Susan Collins to overcome, and I think that it will be a Democratic victory there for the Democrat. And then I think that might just be the end of the lean blue. I'm on the fence about North Carolina putting it in lean blue or tilt blue. For now, I think it really could go either way. For now, I'll put it in lean blue. I think this state generally on the presidential level, it votes red for the Republican. But the Democrats have a fantastic candidate in Roy Cooper, who is going to most likely do pretty well in the state of North Carolina, well enough to win. It might be closer to a tilt margin, but now it's definitely shaping up to be a good election year for Democrats, so it very well could be in the lean blue margin. And for now, that's how I will call it. So that brings Democrats to 48 seats to Republicans 46. And then we're going to head over to the lean red states now, starting out with Nebraska. Generally, the state is safe red, but because there's a bit of an interesting situation here in the state in the Senate race, an independent, Dan Osborne, he ran 2 years ago in 2024 for the other Senate seat in Nebraska. He fell short then, but he did significantly outperform Harris on from her presidential level, and I think that he will be able to narrow things up from a seat that is generally in the safe red column and bring it all the way to lean red, which is still a very impressive feat. I still think it'll be a Republican victory, but that is going to be the call there in Nebraska. Next up, we have Iowa. This state generally is quite a bit more competitive than Nebraska, Iowa, but also has been drifting further and further to the right, and I think this state will most likely be in the Republican Party's column. And then that leaves us with 48 to 48, with only the tilt states left to call. These next four will really be the ones to determine the Senate control. So we'll start out with a Republican seat that I feel reasonably confident in calling, that being the state of Texas. Going to put that into the tilt red column. This will be an interesting election to watch. The Democrat James Tallarico, I think, is a strong candidate that Democrats put forward. And I think that he performs quite well with moderate voters and swing voters in the independents and moderates of both parties in the suburban areas of the big cities in Texas. And I think that is really just going to be crucial. Democrats will need to win the suburbs in Dallas and Austin and Houston and throughout the state in order to have any chance at winning the statewide level. So that is going to be the call there in Texas. Next up, we're going to go to the state of Michigan. The state, I think Democrats might potentially lose this state. At the moment, I think the most likely situation is a Democratic victory. But polling has showed that the Republican, if I remember correctly, Mike Rogers, is performing well in the polling. So this could be a potential. I think if Republicans were to pick up a seat during this election, which I don't think is the most likely situation, but it would probably come from the state of Michigan, which is why I'm going to put it in the tilt blue margin. And then that really means these next two states will be the ones to determine which party controls the Senate. I will start with the one I feel more confident calling, that being Alaska. I'm going to put that into the tilt blue column. This state generally isn't the most competitive. Mary Peltola is the Democratic nominee in the state, and I think she will perform quite well. She has won on the statewide level before for the House position, for the House seat in the House, and because Alaska doesn't have a very big population, the entire state is one House district, so the Senate district is just the whole state as well. And it will be interesting to see what happens. I think she's got the upper hand at the moment, so I'm going to call that for Mary Peltola. Lastly, we have the state of Ohio. That will really be the state to determine partisan control of the Senate. And I've gone back and forth. I've called it both ways. This state I'm probably the least confident in predicting. We can take a look at the betting markets after we call it, but for now, I think the most likely situation is to put it in the Republican Party's column. It could very reasonably go blue, which is why I'm putting it in tilt, but for now, that is going to be the call I will do there. And I think that is going to leave things with a 50-50 split in the U.S. Senate, resulting in a Republican majority, just because of the vice president being the tie-breaking vote, but Democrats put up a good fight and were able to flip 3 seats from red to blue, that being North Carolina, Maine, and Alaska, going from red to blue. And I think that Republicans will still hold the majority in the Senate, but it will be razor thin, and it might be hard for Republicans to pass much in the Senate, especially because I think on the House level, the House is almost certainly going blue, but that is going to be the call for the Senate, 50-50. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks. Bye.